Let it go この決意 Unbreakable 愛する世界に不正なアクセス許さないぜターゲットロックオン今すぐ出動 It's moving time 飛び込め危機の最前線シャットダウン完了特命戦隊ゴーダスターズ
It's time to review Shinobi 3D for the Nintendo 3DS. Shinobi 3D is the latest installment in SEGA's long-running Shinobi series, and is the first game in the franchise since 2004's Nightshade, and the first 2D game altogether since 1993's Shinobi 3 Return of the Ninja Master for the Sega Mega Drive. Over a year ago I reviewed Shinobi 3, and I considered it to be a pretty good game, although it was pretty annoying. Can this new installment somehow improve on 3's issues? Well, let's find out. Confusingly enough, the story of Shinobi 3D is basically a prequel to the rest of the series, where you play as Jiro Musashi, the father of the franchise's main protagonist, Joe Musashi. The plot revolves around Jiro's quest to rid the world of the evil Zed organization no matter what the cost, even if he has to travel through time in order to achieve his goal. Although, as you could probably guess by the other games of the series, he completely screwed that one up. Shinobi 3D returns to the beloved side-scrolling action of the earlier Shinobi games, most notably 3, and plays out in a two-dimensional plane with 3D graphics. You jump by pressing B, as well as a double jump by pressing B while in the air, throw kunai at enemies by pressing X, you can slash enemies by pressing Y, and can activate objects or actions by pressing X. You can also use ninjutsu, which can power you up in various ways by pressing L, and can reflect or defend yourself from enemy attacks by pressing the R button as soon as the attack connects. The objective of the game is to get from point A to point B with as little damage as possible. Whenever you're hit or killed, you'll lose points from your score for whatever level you're on at the moment. When you complete a level, you'll get graded on how well you did, how many times you used ninjutsu, and so forth. If you weren't a high enough rank, you can unlock bonus content such as concept art and music tracks to listen to. As well as the story mode, there are also challenge maps, which can be acquired by using Street Pass or spending play coins on them. In the challenge maps, you have to take out several enemies in an obstacle course, but if you get hit even once, you die and have to start the challenge all over again. There are also different kinds of gameplay you'll encounter throughout the game that require different controls, such as surfing down a cave or riding a horse and jumping over obstacles. Now, the first problem I have with the game is that the graphics are average. They're not bad, they're just not all that good either. They're not very colorful, and there's a lot of jagged edges on the character models, which gives the game an amateurish look, and I don't mean that in a good way. Also, the music is pretty forgettable. Most of the soundtrack isn't all that good, and only a minority of the tracks from that soundtrack actually did stay in my head after I stopped playing the game. I know this doesn't seem like much, but considering that Shinobi 3 had a pretty damn solid and very memorable soundtrack, it's actually pretty annoying. Also, the levels in the game go on for way too long. They go on for about 15 to 25 minutes each, which might be fine if this was a console game, but it's a handheld game, which is pretty inconvenient since most people won't have enough time to complete even one level in just one sitting, and eventually ending fatigue will set in, where you'll just want the level to end, but it feels like it goes on for, well, forever. The biggest problem with the game, however, is that it's frustratingly difficult. I personally accused Shinobi 3 of this as well, but that game was fair in its challenge, and I was just awful at it. Meanwhile, this installment is just cheap on all accounts. And no, changing the difficulty setting barely changes the cheapness of the game, just the number of lives and continues you have. Let me put it to you this way. I played the game on beginner, the easiest difficulty of the game, and I still died countless times due to bottomless pits, annoying enemies, and all sorts of crap trying to kill you. And the last level was where I just gave up as the cheapness exploded tenfold. It even had the balls to include that incredibly stupid section from Shinobi 3 where you had to go into certain doors in order to continue on level. You know, that section that had me running to the internet many a time to figure out which door I was supposed to use. Still, even with all that crap in the game, there actually are a few good things about it. Firstly, the animated cutscenes that occur during and between levels are actually pretty awesome. They're done in a style eerily similar to the old Aeon Flux cartoons on MTV, and while some of the animation is just repeated frames, it still looks pretty nice. And there actually are quite a few references to previous SEGA games like Afterburner and Golden Axe, which are damn awesome for the SEGA fans who played old SEGA games when they were younger, and heck, it even pays tribute to the previous Shinobi games. Jiro's character design is a mix of Joe's Shinobi 3 style and the red long scarf ninja from the PS2 reboot a few years back. It even features sections which are nods to previous games, such as the aforementioned door puzzle and the surfing sections from 3. Heck, it even includes a history section where it discusses each and every Shinobi game. Not just the console games, mind you, but even the handheld installments and spin-offs that no one remembers. And even though I'm a small Shinobi fan, I have to admit, that is really friggin' cool. I also liked how the developers fixed some of the control issues from previous games. When I reviewed 3, I complained that when trying to do certain actions like double jumping or wall jumping, it only went off at random times, even if you knew how to do them. Here, if you input the command for double jumping or wall jumping, they immediately respond in doing it instead of doing it once every 5 times. And while the game is usually frustrating or cheap, whenever you're not actually being killed or injured, the game is actually quite satisfying and fun to play through. Especially the combat, which is quite enjoyable in the parry system. I think the parry system is a very clever idea, as you actually get to defend yourself, and it's really awesome to reflect attacks with parry, even if you have to time it just right. Shinobi 3D is a decent game with fixed controls, awesome tributes to previous Shinobi and SEGA games, quite satisfying and fun gameplay when you're not being screwed over, and nice animated cutscenes. However, it's let down by average graphics, forgettable music, really long levels, and a lot, and I do mean a lot, of really cheap and frustrating moments. Overall, Shinobi 3D gets a rating of actually decent. While not that great, it's a surprisingly enjoyable game, but recommended only for fans of the game's franchise or genre.